Japan is a nation characterized by paradoxes. It is an island that is both physically and socially isolated from the rest of the world, while its culture and technological advancements simultaneously impact nearly every corner of the globe. It is home to the largest city in the world, yet it grapples with a declining birth rate. Historically founded on centuries of bloodshed and violence, Japan now adopts a pacifist posture and does not maintain an offensive military force. The question arises, how did a relatively small, resource-poor island, described by the Chinese Ming Dynasty as a state of great disorder, unify, rise as a military power, face near destruction, and emerge as a global leader? This complex narrative will be explored in this in-depth documentary series, which spans the island's evolution, from its inception to its contemporary role on the global stage. Today, Japan is a thriving metropolis, an archipelago comprising over 14,000 islands, with the 4 primary large islands named Honshu, Hokkaido, Kyushu, and Shikoku. A distinct mix of biomes just off the coast of mainland Asia, separated by the Sea of Japan. But it wasn't always like this. Long before Japan's distinct and vibrant landscape emerged, the island was nothing more than an extension of the Asian mainland. So how did the island itself originate? According to ancient Japanese myths, recorded in the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki, there is a narrative known as Tenchi Kaibyaku that details the creation of heaven and earth. This myth recounts the legendary formation of the celestial realm, the emergence of the first deities, and the establishment of the Japanese archipelago. In this account, the universe is described as an egg-shaped sphere of chaos. Within this primordial chaos, particles coalesced. Some formed clouds in heaven, while others descended to create Earth. In this heavenly domain, 10 deities appeared spontaneously, 2 of whom, Izanagi and Izanami, proceeded to create the Japanese archipelago by stirring the ocean with a spear, from which the matter that dripped off solidified into the islands. These mythological narratives form the foundation of Japanese mythology and the Shinto faith. Early Japanese thinkers and storytellers relied heavily on legends and folktales to explain the formation of the islands. These stories still survive today and continue to shape aspects of Japanese culture, even though Japan is not typically viewed as a religious society. For example, a recent survey indicated that 42% of respondents identified as having no religious affiliation. However, religious practice in Japan differs significantly from that of many Western societies. Even those who do not participate in formal religious activities, such as regular prayer or church attendance, often acknowledge a sacred presence in nature. Residents hold festivals and visit shrines dedicated to natural forces and seasonal changes. This reflects a worldview in which humanity and the natural world are closely connected, sometimes understood in terms similar to those of balance or karmic relationships. These beliefs closely mirror those of Native American tribes, showing that kindness towards the land and its living beings contributes to the well-being of the community and, in turn, to all who share it. Modern scientists and geologists studying the early formation of the archipelago turn to its seas and mountain ranges, trying to uncover a natural record written in stone and sediment over the course of 30 million years. A complex system of plates and layers known as the Japanese Arc System lies at the bottom of the sea, deep beneath layers of sediment and rock that interact, driving plate tectonics. Plate tectonics is the scientific theory that the Earth's outer shell is divided into several large, rigid plates that glide over softer, ductile layers. These plates move constantly, driven by internal heat, causing geological activity such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and mountain building. Japan lies at the intersection of the Eurasia, Okhotsk, Pacific, and Philippine sea plates. The movement and collision of these plates, along with other forces such as global temperature changes and sea level fluctuations, created the archipelago we know today. To simplify, let's break down Japan's creation into distinct, easy-to-digest time periods. Let's begin around 30 million years ago. The land that would one day become Japan looked nothing like the islands we know today. Far beneath the surface of the ocean, immense geological forces were already at work. Violent volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and the movement of massive tectonic plates reshaped the edge of the Asian continent. Across the region, layers of volcanic rock and ash slowly accumulated as the crust of the Earth fractured and shifted. 25 million years ago, enormous rift valleys began forming along the eastern edge of mainland Asia. As the crust stretched and cracked apart, lakes, inland seas, and volcanic regions appeared across what would eventually become the Japanese archipelago. Magma rising from deep within the Earth produced new mountain ranges and volcanic rock formations throughout the region. 20 million years ago, these rift valleys widened even further. Seawater gradually flooded into the expanding gaps between the mainland and the separating landmass. Over millions of years, this process would give birth to the Sea of Japan. 17 million years ago, the landmass of southwest Japan slowly rotated clockwise as tectonic activity intensified. At the same time, northeast Japan shifted independently. These movements helped shape the curved chain of islands that still defines Japan today. As mountains rose from the earth, erosion carried sand, mud, and sediment into surrounding areas. Between 15 and 14 million years ago, expansion of the Sea of Japan largely slowed. By this time, the foundation of the Japanese archipelago had begun to stabilize. Although the islands would continue changing for millions of years, the basic outline of Japan had finally started to emerge. 6 million years ago, volcanic activity intensifies once again throughout many parts of the archipelago. New volcanic mountains formed across western and central Japan, while magma beneath the surface continued reshaping the landscape. 3 million years ago, volcanic activity gradually shifted towards coastal regions along the Sea of Japan. As coastlines rose and fell with changing sea levels, some islands emerged from the sea while others disappeared beneath it. The shape of the Japanese coastline continued evolving into something increasingly recognizable. 1 million years ago, tectonic activity beneath the islands remained relentless. The Philippine sea plate continued sliding beneath the Japanese landmass, fueling earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and mountain formation. These same geological forces still shape Japan to this day. By approximately 100,000 years ago, the Japanese archipelago had taken on nearly its modern form. Even today, the Japanese islands are still changing. Rivers carve through mountains, waves erode the coastline, volcanoes sleep beneath the surface. And deep beneath the earth, the tectonic forces that created Japan continue to shift and grind. Now that we understand how the Japanese islands were formed, let us examine the ancient ecosystem that existed long before the arrival of humans. Japan possesses an incredibly diverse climate. The northern regions experience subarctic conditions, while the south remains humid and subtropical. Stretching across thousands of islands and dramatic changes in elevation, The Japanese archipelago contains a wide variety of ecosystems, unlike anywhere else on Earth. Long ago, these islands were covered in vast forests, wetlands, and rugged mountain ranges, shaped by volcanic activity and the Ice Age. In the far north, alpine glaciers carved the towering peaks of what would later become the Japanese Alps. Lower elevations were blanketed in immersed boreal forests, filled with spruce and fir, while valleys and coastal plains supported sprawling wetlands and woodlands. Among the many plants that came to define the Japanese landscape, few were as important or widespread as bamboo. Towering groves of bamboo, or as the Japanese call it, take, covered river valleys, mountain foothills, and humid forests across much of the archipelago. Fast-growing and remarkably resilient, bamboo thrived in Japan's warm rains, volcanic soil, and shifting climate. Unlike trees that required decades to mature, some species of bamboo could grow several feet in a single day. This rapid growth allowed bamboo forests to quickly reclaim land damaged by earthquakes. Bamboo was once believed to be introduced to Japan later by migrants and traders from mainland Asia. However, modern botanical research suggests that some species of bamboo may have already existed on the islands for millions of years before human arrival. By studying ancient plant fossils, pollen records, and preserved sediments, paleobotanists have discovered evidence that bamboo and bamboo-like grasses were part of Japan's prehistoric ecosystem long before recorded history. For prehistoric animals, bamboo forests provide shelter and food. Dense groves protected smaller animals from predators, while large herbivores moved through the forest, feeding on young shoots and surrounding vegetation. When humans eventually arrived on the islands, bamboo would become one of the most valuable natural resources in Japanese society. Because Japan remained geographically isolated from much of mainland Asia, its ecosystem evolved into a unique blend of southern and northern species. In the north, giant Ice Age animals once roamed the frozen wastelands. Woolly mammoths crossed into Hokkaido using ancient land bridges connected to Siberia. Brown bears, giant elk, and steppe bison also migrated onto the islands during periods of lowered sea levels. Further south, a different world existed. The forests and lowlands of ancient Japan were inhabited by massive Yabes deer, wild boar, Japanese macaques, Newman's elephants, and extinct species that once wandered across the archipelago in large herds. Without the pressure of human hunting or industrial activity, these animals thrived for thousands of years in an environment almost alien compared to modern Japan. But despite the abundance of life, the greatest force shaping these islands was not predator or prey. It was the earth and sea itself. Surrounding the Japanese archipelago, the ancient oceans were just as dynamic and alive as the islands themselves. Powerful ocean currents shaped both the climate and ecosystem of prehistoric Japan. Warm tropical waters from the south flowed northward along the Pacific coast through the Kuroshio Current, sometimes referred to as the Black Stream. Meanwhile, colder currents descended from the north through the Sea of Japan and the waters surrounding Hokkaido. The collision of these warm and cold currents created one of the richest marine ecosystems on Earth. Countless species of fish, shellfish, sea mammals, and migratory birds thrived in these nutrient-rich waters. The oceans surrounding ancient Japan were home to enormous sea life. Whales migrated through the surrounding waters seasonally, while sea lions, dolphins, sharks, and giant schools of fish populated the coasts and inland bays. Shellfish beds stretched across the shallow shorelines, creating abundant food sources that would later sustain early human communities for thousands of years. The sea also helped shape the islands themselves. Typhoons, powerful storms born in the Pacific Ocean, battered the coastlines, season after season. Towering waves carved cliffs from volcanic rock, while shifting tides slowly reshaped beaches, marshes, and river mouths. Japan's prehistoric ecosystem existed in a state of constant geological upheaval. Frequent earthquakes and devastating tsunamis repeatedly transformed the landscape. Entire forests could be destroyed in moments, only to slowly regrow over generations. Ironically, this instability helped create one of the most biodiverse environments in East Asia. And from far beneath the surface, another force continued to rise: volcanoes. Japan presently is home to 110 active volcanoes, towering majestically above the landscape and silently observing the rapid development of cities in contrast to these ancient geological titans. In Hokkaido, located in the northern region, one can find Mount Tokachi, renowned for its scenic hiking trails, therapeutic hot springs, and winter sports facilities. In the south lies Sakurajima, or Cherry Blossom Island, situated in Kagoshima. The local populace utilize fertile volcanic soil to produce pottery and cultivate oranges. However, none of the other volcanic mountains of Japan match the prominence of Mount Fuji. Located approximately 80 miles west of central Tokyo, nearly 800,000 individuals live near Fuji, with around 300,000 hikers visiting the mountain each year. This iconic peak, the tallest in Japan at 12,389 feet, holds significant cultural importance in Shinto belief. Mount Fuji is revered as a divine entity and a vigilant guardian, symbolizing both power and destruction. This belief continues to resonate today, drawing numerous individuals to admire the majestic mountain, while simultaneously prompting contingency plans in the event of this formidable slumbering giant's awakening. Another looming threat targeting the Japanese islands is earthquakes and their malicious counterparts, tsunamis. Originating from the Japanese su, harbor, and nami, wave, it literally means harbor wave. Unlike wind-driven waves, these are caused by underwater earthquakes or volcanic activity, displacing a large amount of water and generating massive waves. The most destructive in modern history was the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. The earthquake generated a tsunami with a maximum wave height of almost 130 feet, affecting 1,242 miles of Japan's Pacific coastline, causing a significant nuclear accident, the destruction of more than 123,000 homes, and the death of 15,901 people. Natural disasters are heavily tied to this country's history and culture. We will explore this more later in our series. For now, let's recap what we've learned so far. Japan is an archipelago located in the Pacific Ocean just off the coast of China. It was created by a chain of events stemming from seismic and climatic activity, and still feels these effects to this day. Although the country is not traditionally religious, some inhabitants are spiritual and believe in a connection between the land and the spirit of humanity. But how did this island nation begin? Who were the first travelers to traverse the icy bridges and grasslands and reach this remote land? Well, long before Shinto, the iconic name Fuji, and even written language, the island was evolving. Up until about 35,000 BC, in small, adventurous groups, stone-tipped tool-wielding people pursued herds of wild animals, such as mammoths, elephants, and deer, across land bridges formed by retreating seas during the Ice Age. This was the moment humans first set foot on the shores of Japan. Thank you for watching part 1 of our Japan documentary series. In the next program, we will explore early human life in Japan, the plants and animals that inhabited the islands, and how human activity began to shape the environment, and how the environment started to shape its people.